Building material brands, it's time to look to the year ahead. We know that there's a lot of changes coming, and we've already experienced a lot that are going to impact the ways that we market to our audiences. Whether it's aligning our sales team, doubling down on digital experience, or the vast opportunities that lay ahead of us, it's time to look at the strategies and plans that are going to make a difference. So, are you ready?
Let's dig in.
Welcome to this episode of Constructive Insights. I'm really excited for our conversation today. I've brought my friend and colleague Shannon Ballard, our Chief Strategy Officer, to join us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Today, we're really going to dig into, kind of getting out our crystal ball and looking to the future of building materials marketing. We want to assess what happened this past year and really look forward at what we can plan for and what we can expect in 2025. So, Shannon, I would love to hear from you. What has shaped, what we can expect in the future? What have we experienced? What has happened this past year that's really transforming our expectations going forward?
It's a great question. I think that 2024 was a year of recalibration. We are still coming off this post-COVID bliss that we had in the building material industry specifically. And for those organizations that still had their sights set on that growth, there was a huge kind of reintroduction to what the reality of this period of time looks for, especially in Q2. We saw a lot of organizations course correcting themselves. There was so much political uncertainty this past year globally, across the United States, even in Canada, as financial pressure is leading to an unsettled feeling amongst consumers. That means our consumers are more cautious. That ripples down to contractors, to builders, and to retailers, which we're going to talk about. So what we are hoping to dig in today, and I love a good trends report, is what do we need to be thinking about for 2025? How will it impact our marketing plans, and how do we redirect our sales team?
And we've looked at a lot of sources to really get here, right? Like we obviously have a lot of experience, a lot of clients in this space, but we wanted to take a big full picture at this, right? Looking at existing research, looking at, the publications, all of the data that we can bring together to really inform these recommendations.
We're always looking for ways to be helpful to our clients, and the one way that we can do that is staying on top of all of the annual reports and earnings calls and looking at what are we seeing that you need to be paying attention to as we're in planning time right now.
Awesome. Okay, so having looked at the past, let's look to the future and let's start talking about those trends. So Shannon, first, I think it's important for us to dig into the retailer space and retailer insights, because I think that is such a key indicator of consumer spending and what's happening in the retailer space. So can you talk to me a bit about that?
We saw a lot of change in the retail space this year. Home Depot reported a decline of sales. We saw Lowe's adjust their forecasts. Menards, there was rumors that they also were moving their forecasts midway through the year. So what does this mean? We speculate that people are moving away from the larger, giant DIY renovations and moving more towards looking for lower investment, but still high impact ways to invest in their homes. So there's that bucket of initiatives. And then we also see a lot of essential repairs. That will continue as people look to do those repairs themselves. I think that it's important for building material brands to align their messaging and their offering with that value equation. So talking about durability, why are you justifying the increased price? Because it's a one-time investment that will last many years. Looking at ease of installation, how people could possibly do it themselves versus hiring someone, but also looking at how do you maximize your partnership with your retail partner. We know it can be a significant investment for brands to make that partnership. So are you leveraging it, not just within the retail partnerships, but across your own omni-channel plan? How can you use installation videos, information that you have to help the end consumer and pull it through across your entire footprint?
Another audience that we actually didn't touch on that is important in the retailer space is the pro. And we're seeing, more concentrated effort from our retailers to really get in with this audience and to really build those relationships and support them, the contractors, the builders, the designers, even help them build their own business. So we're seeing a lot more dollars go that way and a lot more effort to build up their offerings.
I agree. And I think that our brands are also investing more in that audience, independent of retailers too. We're continuing to see more pro education programs, contractor education programs, and that's a really good way to invest in content and resources beyond the retail footprint.
So next, I want to dig into industry shakeups. And this was one that I know that you were super adamant about having in there and that you absolutely felt is still going to be a huge thing moving into 2025. So talk to me about mergers and acquisitions.
Oh my goodness. I have never seen a year with more mergers and acquisitions. Every single one of our clients was either part of a merger acquisition or impacted by one in the industry. The landscape has changed dramatically. And this is important. There's a consolidation of smaller and regional players, and that means that people need to reevaluate what's happening around them. Their competitors very well may have changed. They need to look at what their own value proposition is because others in the industry are changing theirs. Their offerings are becoming more dynamic, more in depth. There could be a supply chain consolidation. And so now is a really good time to stop and say, do we still know who we're competing against? What are they saying? How are they positioning themselves? What are we saying? And perhaps do a bit of a zoom out to make sure their messaging is resonating with their key audiences.
Absolutely. And for those brands that are coming together, I think that, we can't overlook the importance of change management, of proper change management. You've got a lot of not only products and services and value propositions and differentiators and everything coming together, but you've got a lot of people coming together who, that's your base, who's going to tell your story, who's going to move that forward. Making sure that you're doing the right things to bring those teams along, giving them the resources, giving them the right stories to tell. That's so essential when you're experiencing so much change like this.
Sales especially. Really making sure that the sales team understands perhaps additions to the product line or omissions as businesses have been sold off, and what that means for the offering. So yeah, this one will continue to be an interesting one to follow this year. Get your alerts on, have someone in your organization looking at what's going on because it's going to happen quickly.
So I want to dig into the topic of positioning solutions versus products and what that's going to look like in the coming year. We've seen a lot of climate change. We've seen a lot of changes when it comes to the weather that our audiences are experiencing, and a lot of products really need to dig into how they're differentiating and setting themselves up as those solutions to answer those needs. So talk to me a bit about that.
So yes, is extreme weather a trend? Perhaps not, but I do think that even this year, witnessing what we saw across the southern U.S. was very shocking for all of us. I think that it's not going to go away. And so the trend that we see is looking at how are you positioning your products from a weatherproofing perspective, but more importantly, a future-proofing perspective. People want to invest in products that are helping support the conditions that they are building houses, renovating houses for, buildings for right now, but also for the future. And once you can position both from a quantitative and a qualitative perspective, that safety and then the quantitative measures of how your product is future-proofed, you'll be able to justify our higher price point. And consumers overall are okay with spending money when they know that durability and sustainability is going to be a key component of what's being offered.
I completely agree. And that durable aspect is so important. Now, you also mentioned sustainability.
I knew this was going to come up.
So we had talked about sustainability,
Yes.
and should it be part of the trends, or what are we expecting here? And it was left out. It was intentionally left out. So let's chat about that.
I knew
Shannon.
you were going to get me on this one. Okay, sustainability, is it a trend? I am struggling with the definition of sustainability right now. We are seeing it thrown around as a buzzword. Most building material organizations have it somewhere on their landing page or their web page, but I don't know if it has meaning right now. It can be anything from looking at how products are developed and created to a fluff word that's pushed into a value. So
exactly, there's nothing solid that's really grounding it.
Right. And organizations are using it in so many different ways. There are a few key leaders who have made it part of their story and have the proof points of how they're weaving it into their product offering and how they're running their businesses, and I applaud them. And that's the type of sustainability messaging that I stand by. But I think sustainability as a trend is one we need to get away from. We need people to actually stand behind their sustainability claims.
So let's keep focusing on the solutions that are going to give us longevity, that durability, that protection, that safety. And for those who have a good sustainability story, absolutely bring it forward. But let's not water that down. Let's keep focusing on the solutions that are going to help our customers.
Okay, trend number 4, digital experience. Why is this still on the trends report?
Because it's so critical. I mean, it's gone from a nice to have to a must have, and for so many reasons. I mean, if you have your audience members coming to your site, coming to your different platforms, and they're not getting a good experience, that's affecting trust, that's affecting, their entire purchase. And I think that it's so critical that yes, this doesn't come off the list because it needs to be top of mind for our building material brands. We know that this industry has been a bit slower when it comes to digital transformation, but we're seeing a pickup. And now our consumers, our pros, are expecting those good experiences, those seamless experiences, those omni-channel experiences. So let's think about that more and even go beyond. I'm not just talking about e-commerce. I'm not just talking about how things connect, but how can we go beyond and answer those needs that our audiences are expecting? They're experiencing lots of things in their day-to-day life, and they're bringing that to these brands.
I am still a little surprised at how many building material brands I talk to who aren't leveraging their digital experience to support their sales team. They still haven't right-sized the sales approach for the world that we live in, and I think that's a huge missed opportunity. Are we talking about AI today?
Well, I mean, this wasn't on here because to me, it is just table stakes now.
Right.
It is not going away. It is here to stay, and we need to figure out how to use it. We debated whether it's on the trends forecast, but maybe we should talk about, what it's actually doing to impact building material brands.
So as we continue to learn how to leverage AI in our day-to-day business operations, there's still a gap in what it can do and what we believe it can do. And I think that will happen faster than we believe. And one thing I think we need to be thinking about is this idea of marketing to machines. We are seeing that people are starting to use platforms like ChatGPT as a search engine, and in fact, they did enable that technology. So we need to think about how are we also changing our search strategies so that the robots are thinking about us. I know. Don't think about it this year. Start to get the motors running, because by this time next year, it's going to be on the report.
So next, I want to dig into the alignment between marketing and sales, because we're seeing a lot of demand from brands this year really asking and looking for help when it comes to aligning these two teams. We know that in the building material space, the journey is on and offline. We know that a lot of customers are doing their research before ever connecting with sales. And so we need to make sure that the efforts are combined and that we're working towards those same goals. And so that's really brought forward this emphasis on sales enablement. We've talked about it a lot this year, and we're hearing a lot from teams, how can we build stronger sales enablement efforts, and what do we need to be doing? When it comes to sales enablement, that could be looking at content. It could be looking at the different ways, the different tools that we're giving our teams and, setting sales up, as well as sales giving back data and information to marketing. But really, in my perspective, it comes down to making sure that you're working towards the same goals, you're figuring out those opportunities for efficiency, and you're learning and filling those gaps together, making sure that you're both armed with what you need to achieve those business objectives.
Which is really much easier said than done. There's some practical things that people can do immediately to ensure alignment. Meet with your sales team. What are the top 5 questions that they get asked over and over again? And how can you give them content so that they're not repeating the same things? How can you create webinars? How can you put some of that content on the website so that people can self-serve? Second, have you ever done a journey mapping exercise, using a basic framework and then looking at what are the main questions that your customers ask at each of those phases, and then what content do you have to support that? And then, do the sales team actually know that content exists? That is actually a big gap that we've noticed over and over again. And I think that it's also not creating content for content's sake. Yes. But actually looking at what are the pain points of your customers and how do you weave in your value proposition and your proof points to help with those micro stages in the customer journey. So sales enablement must be on your plan this year.
Okay, so I want to dig into our last trend, which is really around meeting our customers where they are. There's been an intentional shift over the past few years of really getting specific and segmenting our audiences to make sure that our brands are connecting in ways that matter to our customers, whether it's the pros, whether it's the DIYers, the homeowners, really getting down to what they need to make sure that we are becoming that indispensable solution for them. So talk to me a bit about that and how we can plan for that in the coming year.
So each of the audiences, let's just break it into 3 sections. Let's talk about contractors, homeowners, and then builders. They each are thinking about very different things, and the more you can lean into a segment-specific strategy, the better. So let's talk about contractors, the hardest audience to reach. They are very focused right now on overcoming labor shortages, and the way that a lot of our clients are working with contractors, like you said, is on the education programs and helping provide resources so that they can upskill their teams. But it's also on products that are easier to install, take less time, and we haven't seen this sort of innovation in some of these products in a long time, and that's really exciting. I think most of our clients have a big product launch coming this year, which goes back to that other point we made about making sure you have your eye on the competition. There is going to be some new things hitting this year that will also impact your strategy, so making sure you're staying above that.
And making sure that you're hyper-focused on the true value that you provide, the differentiated value that you provide.
The second one is around homeowners. As we mentioned, they're moving away from these large-scale renovation projects. They're looking for low investment, high impact projects. So thinking about how you can show up on platforms like TikTok with installation videos, using influencers, micro influencers to demonstrate the credibility and ease of installation is an accessible way for you to demonstrate your product to audiences that might not be thinking about it. The third one is about home builders. There's a huge variety as well within this segment. You've got your high-end luxury home builders, but you also have your mass home builders. home building isn't slowing down. There's a huge need for more housing across North America. And so how are you going to use an account-based marketing approach? How are you offering your products to those homeowners so that the end user sees value, but you continue to keep your costs low and installation low for those home builders? So it's an interesting place to play, and it's an exciting one because I think that's where really good marketing has a chance to shine.
So as we round out this episode and, the 6 trends that we really see for the coming year, I think it's clear to say that change is inevitable. Our brands are going to face some challenges, but a lot of really good opportunities. So as we close off, I wanted to see, is there any words of wisdom that you would give our brands as they approach 2025?
Oh, not sure about wisdom, but one thing that I saw, and I have the unique position that I'm talking to brands across the building material space, is 2024 was a reactionary year. People really felt that regardless of what plans they put in place this time last year, it was defensive this year. Reacting to extreme weather, reacting to political and economic uncertainty, reacting to sales teams that were not set up properly to sell, changing forecasts, that sort of thing. So let's all try to get ahead of that and create a strategy that's a little bit more flexible, that's supporting some of these things that we know aren't going to go away, because anyone who's played any sort of sport knows that it's much more enjoyable to play an offensive game and control the pace of play. And this is what I hope for our marketers this year, is that we can support them to put some things in place so they can feel some more satisfaction out of what they're putting into the market.
And I think it's safe to say the brands that are going to see the most success aren't just following these trends, they're leading them. And so on that note, thank you for joining me, Shannon, and thanks everyone for being here.